Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. Before we start, I'd just like to say how happy I was with the response to Tuesday's Tough as Old Boots video. I anticipated that because it was a carrier replay, you were all going to break the dislike button, but because I very cunningly decided to not actually talk about carrier gameplay and instead just talk about, aircraft carriers from a historical perspective, it turns out it was one of my most liked videos ever. So I figured that was quite a good move. And in response to the overwhelming majority of the comments, yes, I'm definitely going to be doing stuff like that again in future. In particular, the subject of naval damage control and firefighting, I think, is a particularly good topic and one that really hasn't been addressed anywhere outside of Drachenfell's channel. What do you mean, who's Drachenfell? Seriously, go and watch some of his stuff, educate yourselves. Anyway, more of that will be coming up in the near future. For now, this is Sneaky 69 in the USS Atlanta, one of my favourite ships in the game and the oldest surviving premium warship in World of Warships. Back when the game launched, there were a choice of, in fact even prior to the game's launch, back in open beta, there were a choice of two premium ships that you could buy. The Atlanta at tier 7 and the Kitakami at tier 8. The Kitakami was removed and replaced with the Atago after launch, which means that the Atlanta retains the crown of the oldest premium ship in the game. And it's absolutely fantastic, although it's difficult to play well. And the reason that it's difficult to play well will become apparent if you take a look at the range circles around the icon of the ship on the minimap. You see that dotted line? Yeah, that's the surface detection range, 10.98 kilometers, and you see the solid line just fractionally outside the dotted line, and that's the range of the guns, 11.1 kilometers. Yeah. So basically, if you're close enough to shoot at something in the Atlanta, it's pretty much always going to be close enough to see you. There's very little sneaking up on people in the Atlanta. Or at least there's very little sneaking up on people in the Atlanta if you stick to open water. The Atlanta loves islands. The advantage of having all of these 127mm, what are essentially American destroyer turrets, is that you retain the ballistics of those 127mm American destroyer guns. Very high firing arcs. Because the shells are so lightweight, in order to hit anything at the maximum range, they have to be fired extremely high into the air, and that allows you to shoot clean over islands, which means that the best way and the most successful and profitable way to play the Atlanta is to hug those islands like they were your waifu. Use them as cover, fire over them, and rain down death and destruction on your enemies. Oh, by the way, just pay attention to the Italian cruiser up ahead, the Trento. Yet another player who just doesn't understand the point of the Italian cruiser full-speed smoke consumable. He's popped his smoke and he's firing his guns and is actually slowing down. The Trento has an 8.7 kilometer smoke firing penalty, which means that even if you're inside a smoke screen, if anything is within 8.7 kilometers of you, it's going to see you. So, yeah. Stopping broadside on in front of a couple of battleships while within 8.7 kilometers of a bunch of destroyers that saw you firing and spotted you for those battleships was an incredibly bad idea. Honestly, if you're not sure what the smoke firing penalty of your ship is, just press the H key in-game. It brings up a whole bunch of useful information. It tells you how many of your anti-aircraft guns are still operational, for example, but it also tells you how far away you'll be detected if you're firing your guns from within smoke. Italian cruiser captains, learn what your smoke firing penalty is before you slow down and start firing at things while broadside on to a whole bunch of battleships. I promise you, you'll enjoy the game more. But anyway, we were talking about the extremely limited range on the Atlanta's guns, because at the end of the day it is just a cruiser that's on with a whole bunch of destroyer turrets. Yes, you could take the advanced firing training skill. It's a 4-point captain skill, and I often see a lot of Atlanta captains taking it as their first 4-point captain skill, and this will give these guns a range of 13.3 kilometers. But as any American destroyer captain will happily tell you, the chances of successfully, reliably and consistently scoring hits on anything at a range of more than 10 kilometers with these guns that is smaller than a cruiser is kind of slim. Because the shells are so lightweight and they do take so long to get to the target at that kind of range, and even if you are farming damage on a battleship, the caliber, 127mm, these are 5-inch guns, is so low that you can only really reliably penetrate a battleship's superstructure, even if you take the IFHE skill. And you have all of these problems if you're shooting at targets 10 kilometers away, so they're not going to get any better if you're shooting at targets up to 13.3 kilometers away. So, you know, yeah, that's a thing. Oh shit. Oh, this could be very bad. Oh, actually, that wasn't too bad. Speaking of Italian cruisers, the Monte, I don't know how you pronounce it. The Monte over there, Italian semi-armor piercing is absolutely, or can be absolutely devastating on Atlantas, because you basically have destroyer armor, and you know how badly Italian semi-armor piercing ammunition can chunk the shit out of destroyers. And the Atlanta basically has destroyer armor, except unlike destroyers, it has a citadel. Getting shot at by Italian cruisers in the Atlanta is extremely butt-clenching, because while the Atlanta's citadel does have an 89mm armor belt, that's no protection against 8-inch armor-piercing shells. So either the Italian cruiser has loaded armor-piercing, in which case you might get citadeled and die, or he's loaded semi-armor-piercing, which isn't going to penetrate your citadel, but it's going to do large amounts of chunk damage as it rips right through your 19mm of plating. So it's a bit of a lottery. Luckily, the Monte over there did have the semi-armor-piercing loaded, and Sneaky 69 didn't actually take that much damage from it. It could have been a lot worse. Now, like the Trento earlier, we have another example of somebody making an extremely poor decision. Observe the Eagle-Eyes now up ahead. He's charged right into a crossfire between a whole bunch of enemy ships in order to get torpedoes away from one side, and now he's turning and giving broadside to a whole bunch of enemy ships in order to get the torpedoes away from the other side. Now, if he thinks he's going to get out of there alive, and he's also firing torpedoes at targets that are heading away from him, so he has to get significantly closer to ensure that they stay within the 6-kilometer range. And oh look, the Gneisenau died. What a surprise, said absolutely nobody ever. And he did manage to get the torpedoes away though. And one of them is going to hit the Duke of York, and it will be enough to sink the Duke of York. And any second now, there it is. So congratulations, you just threw away a tier 7 battleship to score a torpedo hit for 8,000 damage on a Duke of York that was about to die anyway. Well, it was a trade, tier 7 battleship for a tier 7 battleship. They were both low on health. Yeah, but he was low on health because he closed to within 4 kilometers of a Duke of York, giving broadside to an Iron Duke and a Perth and a Montecuccoli in order to get the torpedoes away. Was there anything that he did there that he couldn't have done from 11 kilometers away with his 15-inch guns? And probably survived in the process. Yeah, no, I don't think so. Oh look, the Perth's come out. Why is a Perth reversing out from behind an island? I think there may be torpedoes on the way. Well, there were torpedoes on the way, but they were going in the other direction. But there are probably Perth torpedoes on the way too, and oh shit. Well, actually, not oh shit. Yes, it's an Iron Duke, yes, it's a battleship. And given a broadside like that to most battleships at that kind of range in any kind of cruiser is usually asking for a paddling, but not really so much in the Atlanta. In fact, going nose into something like an Iron Duke is actually asking for more of a kicking in an Atlanta because of the ship's terrible armour. Battleship caliber shells tend to just over-penetrate for minimal damage. You tend to take more damage from battleships in the Atlanta if you're showing them the bow or the stern, because then the shells actually have time for the fuses to arm and can do serious damage. So, giving broadsides to battleships in the Atlanta can be risky. You might roll a 1 on the D20 and he's going to citadel you, but usually, yeah, you'll take hits, but they probably won't be too bad. Showing broadside to anything else, an extremely bad idea. And again, you know, a lot of these things are not exactly intuitive, and they can take novice Atlanta captains by surprise. Like where to put your first 4-point captain skill. A lot of people look at the terrible range of the guns and they think, oh yeah, I definitely need advanced firing training. Well, do you? I mean, it's not a waste of 4 points. but I'd definitely recommend Concealment Expert first, because while advanced firing training will extend the range of the guns to 13.3 kilometers, good luck hitting anything smaller than a battleship at that kind of range, and you still have terrible concealment. But if you take Concealment Expert, you kind of gain that window of opportunity between your maximum firing range and your concealment range, but in the other direction. Oh, pay attention here. There. That was a single armour-piercing hit from the Iron Duke, and it did as much damage as the multiple over-penetrations on his broadside from the Iron Duke that he suffered earlier, because that single armour-piercing shell hit the stern and didn't over-penetrate and just pop out the other side. It travelled down the length of the ship, and he might have actually taken a citadel from the Iron Duke at that kind of angle. By the way, it's probably worth pointing out at this stage of the battle, as Sneaky 69 unloads and does some serious chunk damage on a Bliskovica that really should have been aware that he was there. The team is actually doing incredibly badly at the moment. I mean, the difference in points isn't that much, but it's going to get much worse very quickly, because the enemy team have 3 of the 4 caps, and they have a 2-ship advantage. Although that 2-ship advantage is about to become a 1-ship advantage, because the Bliskovica over there, that ship's getting some buffs soon, by the way, and about time. It's been suffering from some power creep since it was introduced all those years ago. But right now he's thinking, nope, 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 and after getting chunked by crossing the gap in one direction, he's getting chunked by crossing the gap in the other direction. Unfortunately, the kill is not going to belong to Sneaky 69. In fact, he died from the fire that was set by the Akatsuki. Actually, apparently that's pronounced Akatsuki. You don't really pronounce the U, or so I've heard. But whatever, anyway. Actually, while we're here, let's take some time to attempt to work out the pronunciation of that Italian cruiser that hit his broadside with some semi-armour piercing earlier, and got some quite seriously chunk damage in return from Sneaky 69's armour piercing. Apparently, if you have a double C in Italian, that's pronounced with a sort of ch sound. A sound that the Portuguese have a lot of trouble pronouncing, it's just not in their language. Seriously, you want to hear Rita pronouncing the name of the Churchill tank. It's the Churchill. But anyway, so yeah, is that a Montecuccoli? I think you can get away with it if you just really lay the Italian accent on thick. The Montecuccoli. Yeah, close enough for government work. That's not it, of course, that's the enemy Gneiser now. He's still lurking around there somewhere. I think he sailed up the middle and helped to take the cap circle to the north there. To begin with, Sneaky 69 unloads with the high explosive, and you will do some decent damage with the high explosive, providing you can hit the superstructure. The problem is the superstructure can very quickly become damage saturated, and the amount of damage that you do trails off dramatically. Of course, being this close to the Gneisenau, while the Gneisenau's guns were not pointing in this direction, that's good, the Gneisenau's secondaries are no joke. And of course, he also has torpedoes, and you are very definitely within that 6-kilometer torpedo range. This is why Sneaky has been backing off. He wants to ensure that there's some solid cover between him and any torpedoes that the Gneisenau is almost certainly going to be firing from his starboard side down this gap. Right now he's switched to the armour piercing, and yep, there are the torpedoes, and oh shit. Oh, that's not good. That's not good at all. That is in fact very bad. Still has the armour piercing loaded in order to try to penetrate the deck armour of the Gneisenau. But the Atlanta's 5-inch armour piercing can make a real mess of cruisers at ranges of less than 5 kilometers, which the Zara is. And the few shells that actually made it over the island there did actually do a fair amount of damage to the Zara, but of course Sneaky 69 has to make a trade-off because, yep, Zara torpedoes and Zara guns. I mean, he doesn't have nearly enough health to be getting into a gun battle with a heavy cruiser like that. And here comes the Iron Duke. Oh god. So the Zara was actually quite lucky to survive that. I mean, the Zara's Citadel belt is 150mm, but its upper belt is only 30mm, and 5-inch armour piercing at that range will go through it like a hot knife through butter. Of course, the Zara survived that with only 68 health left, so he's not feeling very brave, but oh look, here comes the Iron Duke. Now, what a lot of people forget, and it looks like the Akatsuki has launched some torpedoes for him, but those are all going to miss. Spoiler alert. But what a lot of people forget about the Atlanta, and they forget it about the Omaha, and they tend to forget it about the Phoenix as well, is that the Atlanta is one of the few American cruisers that is armed with torpedoes. Now, they're not very good torpedoes. They do a lot of damage, but they're slow and they only have a 4.5 kilometer range. But if someone's going to oblige you by sailing within 4.5 kilometers, each one of these things is going to do over 16,000 damage, minus any torpedo damage reduction. And the Iron Duke only has 16%. So this is actually very surprising, because he did slow down and only one of those torpedoes hit, but it did way, way less than 16,000 damage. I think because the Duke's bows were damage saturated, but he managed to finish him off with the guns. He's got less than 100 health remaining. So now Sneaky 69's in a very interesting situation. If he heads north, the Zara won't be able to hit him, but the Koenig and the King George V will. And if he goes anywhere else, the Zara's going to get him. Unless, of course, he gets the Zara first. So this is a very high-stakes game of chicken, basically. And it's one that, luckily, Sneaky 69 is going to win. But what about the Mahan sitting 11 kilometers away? He's been sitting staring at that Zara and the Iron Duke for the last 3 or 4 minutes. He could have easily torpedoed either of them, and, well, the Zara only had 68 health. A single 5-inch shell, as we just saw, was easily capable of killing him. Unfortunately, the Mahan is AFK, and he's been AFK since this battle was 8 minutes old. Obviously, I've got no idea what the Mahan's story is. I'm certainly not confident enough to state categorically that he's just some scumbag who spat his pacifier out and quit the game when it looked like the team were losing. That may be the case. But lately I have been seeing people getting kicked out mid-match for reasons that are entirely outside of their control. Just the other day, I submitted a AFK report against a Nürnberg who'd been clearly AFK for at least 5 minutes in the middle of the battle, only to see him suddenly come back to life again with just a couple of minutes of the battle left, complaining in chat that the game had kicked him out 2 times in a row. So we'll give the Mahan the benefit of the doubt, which I'm sure a lot of you will find very refreshing as far as I'm concerned, because I'm normally the first person to call people out for being scumbags, but hey, maybe I'm just mellowing with my old age. Speaking of things that are very refreshing to see, it's nice to see that the entire team aren't just trying to win harder and throwing themselves against the 2 surviving battleships on the enemy team, and instead are playing it safe and they're going for the caps. I mean, the enemy do still have a points lead, but, oh, actually, no, they don't. I take it back. Wow, Big Dog UK over there in the Akatsuki. What a player. Not only is he playing it safe and he's taking the alpha cap off the enemy team, he also torpedoed and killed the Koenig that was attempting to take the northern cap. So, wow, yeah, extremely well done. And now, of course, Sneaky 69 is taking the southern cap. So there's no way the enemy team can recover from this. Even if that King George V kills the 2 battleships up to the northeast, Sneaky 69's team is still going to win on points. So it's very nice and very refreshing to see some actual intelligent endgame play from a winning team for once. Of course, Sneaky 69's not going anywhere near a Koenig and a King George V when he's got less than 100 health remaining. But I'll tell you what is impressive about all this. You know, when somebody's been working hard, when you look at the amount of damage that they've done, 125,000 damage, and he's got the high caliber award, and yet he only has 2 kills. In distinct contrast to the show-off video that I showed you earlier this week, where the Massachusetts managed to kill 11 of the 12 ships on the enemy team, but only actually did an average of around about 16,000 damage to each. They're both impressive, just in different ways. Yes, jolly good show indeed. What dark sorcery is this? How's somebody managed to get Jingles as a captain on board their American cruiser, he asked, as the team almost reached 1,000 points, but the Scharnhorst B managed to nail that King George V right in the dying seconds of the match. Actually, somebody asked in a comment to a previous video this week, why is it that Jingles only seems to feature replays from people who use him as a captain? Oh, if only it were that simple. I don't know, maybe he was just trolling us all. Obviously, you can't use me as a captain of anything that's not British, but what you can do, if you have unlocked me as a playable captain, is that you can go into the audio settings of World of Warships and select the Mighty Jingles as your national voiceover mod. And so you basically have me, or at least my voice, as the captain of whatever ship you happen to be playing, regardless of nationality. And that's what I've done in World of Warships, and that's why you're constantly hearing me, not just giving the commentary, but also given the voice commands for every replay that I've featured recently, because I'm awesome. and, and I need to spread myself around a bit more. But anyway, Sneaky 69 in the USS Atlanta, extremely well played, nice to see. Some real brown alert moments during the course of that match, but it was good to see that you kept your head, you played intelligently, and it all came through in the end. So well done on the high caliber, well done on the win. I hope you're enjoying the ship. She really is fantastic. She's been one of my favourites since the day she was introduced all of those years ago. And best of luck in the future, everyone else. I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.